Okay, so we've got it running on the chart. The first thing to do is just check that we've got this white smiley face in the center of the panel. If not, then make sure you've got auto trading shown as green there, and also under the expert properties, make sure you've got this under the common tab, you've got this allow live trading ticked, and that should give you that white smiley face so the EA can actually open and close trades. If not, then you may need to get in touch with your broker to ask him to enable expert advisors on your account. Then the next thing you'll need to do is to get the news events working, and to do that he'll actually tell you in the news events section there what you need to do, but basically it's tools, options, expert advisors, and you need to make sure you've added these this URL here. Now it could change, so it'll show you the latest in the text on the panel for that, so that we can access the news events from Forex Factory. And also while you're there, add the RunwiseFX.com as well, so that you can access rules from our website. And then you'd click OK on that. And then what you could do to kind of reparse news is if you go to, I press there, there's a config button on the panel. If you press there, tools, and there's like a news capture button. If you press that, it'll recapture the news events from Forex Factory. If you're not interested in the news events at all, you can switch it off. You go to config display, then it's got the number of news lines here, so you could set that to 0 and then click save. And then going down the panel, we've got our status text for the two directions, sell and buy. There's no trade open, so it's just showing you the pips at risk, which is the stop loss plus the spread. It also outputs the status of our trading rules, which are down here. I'll talk about those a little bit more later. We've then got a built-in indicator showing you the direction that the market's moving in various time frames. If it's a hollow arrow, then it means it's a less stronger move, and a solid arrow means it's a proper light reversal. And then the numbers is the number of pips that it's moved in that direction. If you don't want that, you can go to config, display, and then you could untick where it says trend arrow indicators, untick that, and also so it's not calculated in the background, is also blank that box out as well. Do save, and then what it'll do, it'll take it away from the panel, make it a little bit smaller for you. We've then got the sell and buy controls. We've got the one-click trading. We've got the risk setting. That's the amount of your either account or either your balance or equity, whichever's the smallest, and that will use then to calculate the lot size based on the stop loss. And then we've got the one-click trading buttons, and then underneath this area, trade rules control, this is very configurable. So if you download rules from our library, then you'll actually see this section change. These are our default rules that we supply the EA with. We'll talk about those a little bit more later. But essentially they just enter when any configured indicators are in agreement. Okay, so now we can start looking at configuring the system. So on the chart we've got our stop loss levels. This is a hidden stop loss, sometimes called a virtual stop loss in the yellow, and then we've got the cyan coloured is going to be the take profit. Now all this is obviously, as you'd imagine, completely configurable. And if you go to the config button, we've got all our beautiful pop-up controls here, so you can control and configure different parts of the system. If you click stop loss, then you can set the stop loss. We offer automatic, where it's got various calculation methods available. They're explained more in detail in the manual, but there's some there that I'm sure you'll recognise. You can select for fixed pips, so it's like a radio button, so that's how you'd select for fixed pips. Then you could type a number in, like for 30 for fixed pips. Manual, so you would have an initial number of pips, but then you'll be able to move the line on the chart. Rule is if it's you've loaded something from our library. We've got a library, runwisefx.com/CSA. We've got various rules. And some of the ones in the miscellaneous section, which is down here, will set the stop loss based on various like price action and things like that. And if you downloaded one of those rules, it would set the method as rule, and so it would come from our rules engine. And you can switch the stop loss off, but obviously we don't really recommend that because the market can move very suddenly. Trading without a stop loss, very dangerous really, because you have got a stop loss, it's just your entire account. Okay, so just if I just click save there, so you can see now that stop loss has moved to 30 pips. So let's go back in there. So let's go back to a calculation method. Should say some of our calculation methods like parabolic SAR and also our built-in ones, standard and advanced, they, if we click save, they only calculate in the direction that the market's moved in. So at the moment we're in a buy situation, so as you can see now I've only got the stop loss for the buy, and you can see now that the sell button is oranged out, and if you press that now it'd actually open a trade just saying that there's no stop loss set. Okay, but your risk is. Okay, so if you set in a risk percent, then we need to know what the stop loss is so we can work out the lot size. So that's just something to point out really. But the default now we've actually changed to ATR, which calculates in both directions. The min-max offset, what it is when you're calculating a stop loss value, sometimes it can calculate and be very shallow, can be a little bit too small or maybe too big. So the min-max allows you to constrain the calculated value or the value from one of our rules between a minimum maximum of your choice. We're using percentage signs here, which you can actually use with these pips boxes as well, and what that means is percentage of the average daily range, which is a very good technique really, because each symbol does vary in terms of how many pips it moves in a day, so this will kind of scale it to what it typically moves. Right, and we've also got a little offset, so you can add an extra pip or two, so that some traders like to do that, so they get the ATR value, which is very common, but they like to add an extra pip, so you can just put one and add an extra little pip to that calculated value. And here if you take that, then it will put this trail on the stop loss, so when the trade starts moving to profit, it'll move the stop loss with it. So again, we can just click save there, and it's going to move back to the where it's calculating the stop loss in both directions. Tell you what though, let's just put it back to that parabolic SAR. Okay, so we just got one stop loss, because we want to talk now about the take profit, so just keep the chart a little bit clearer, just having one stop loss. So to configure the take profit, config take profit. Now it's a very, very flexible system. There's a lot to it, but it's not too hard to configure. At the moment we've got just one target, which is a 1.2 risk reward ratio. So it's looking at the risk, which is the stop loss in pips plus the spread, and then that's calculating out the risk reward ratio. Right, so and then we're exiting 100% when that's hit. But let's do something else. Let's have 4 levels. We'll have risk reward ratio of 1, 2, 3, 4. Now some traders, rather than risk reward ratio, like to have pips, so you can select just to do pips if you want fixed pips, but let's keep it with risk reward ratio. We do recommend that. And then we're going to exit 25% on the first target, 50 on the next, 75, and then 100. And these are the percentages of the original trade. So basically it's going to close out 25% each time. And what we're also going to do is to adjust the stop loss. So basically this is like action on hit. So yes, it can exit, brilliant, but you can also adjust the stop loss or set it to trail or for break even. And it is possible to actually get it to so that it doesn't actually exit, but you just use this target to actually change the stop loss. And when you're changing the stop loss, we'll get it to raise. There's a few options there. They're explained in more detail in the manual, but we're going to get it to raise, and I'm going to show you what this does. And then raise. Technically we didn't need that last one actually, because we were going to be closing the trade anyway there. So click save. So now what we've got is 4 levels. So basically what's going to happen, when it gets to the first level, it's going to close 25%, and then it's going to raise the stop loss to break even. It gets to the second target, and that raise is going to raise it up to the target before, and then it's like a jump in stop loss. And then when it gets to this one, it's going to then set the stop loss to the target underneath, and then when it finally, you can see here 100%, sorry, those were pips actually, it's going to close the trade completely when it gets to that 4th level. Okay, so let's just go back to that. And then also what you can do is to switch on the trail and break even. We'll talk a bit more about the break-even. People do ask, well, why is there a separate break-even? And we'll talk about that. We'll answer that question in a moment. Oh, by the way, there is of course all our optimization, where if you've got the strategy builder, it can automatically optimize and work out all the best settings for you, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, and the other thing that you're likely to want to configure as well is the risk and the lot. So this will be based on the stop loss. We've got it at the default 2% there of your account per trade. You can do the fixed amount, so that's in your whatever your account currency is. So you could like risk, you know, $50 or whatever per trade, or you can go for fixed lots, and that's the selection you'd need if you weren't trading without stop loss. You would actually need to put the lot size in directly, and it also just lets you know what the broker is reporting as the min and max, just so that you know. Okay, but we'll keep it as it is. Right, so this config button is allowing you to set the defaults, but what quite a few traders might want to do is actually make changes on the fly. So actually make an adjustment to the stop loss on a kind of trade by trade basis. So to enable that, we go to config, go to display, and there's this panel items, and we've got this on the fly changes, SL, TP and pending. If you click that, then you'll see now some extra controls have appeared in the panel, and this basically allows you to make these on the fly changes. So at the moment, yeah, we've got the stop loss set to auto, but what we could, if you just wanted to quickly change it to manual and move the line on the chart, so you could go to man for manual, move the line on the chart. You could then select the line, just click it, and then you perhaps may want to do that and just move it and just look at your price action, and it will recalculate the take profits for you because it's all set to that risk reward ratio. So there's a good example. And when the trade opens, in fact, should we just show you a trade open? So if you click buy now, it'll do the trade open. So what's happened now? A few things have happened. The dotted lines have gone to dash because they're now active. It's now live. There's a trade open. The same for the take profit. As these take profits are hit, they'll change back to dotted lines and it'll say taken in brackets. And we've also got, this is the broker stop loss. So this is our hidden level. And then we've got the stop loss that we tell the broker. We've got a whole video called The Truth About Brokers that say why you should sort of hide your true stop loss from the broker. And that's the configurable distance away, and there's an EA input for that. It's currently I think 25% of the average daily range. You can also see the close button has now appeared, where you could do a partial close or a full close, and you can set the percentage of the close here. We've also got a scale in button where we'd actually open an additional ticket, and that would be 100%. So whatever the size of your position is, it would double it if you were to do a scale in. On the subject of scale in, these are where you can set up pending orders. But if a trade is already open, then we set up a pending order, what it's actually going to do is to scale in when it reaches that target. So basically we just move that a bit higher, and then what it would do is when it reaches this pending line, because the trade's already open, it's actually a pending scale in. So it'll actually, it's as if you press that button, but when it gets to that price. So it's just a nice little feature that you could easily miss if you go through the manual. But I just thought I'd point that out just while we've got a trade open. We'll talk about pending lines in general in a moment. We also we've got controls here for the trailing the stop loss and for break even. We do get asked, why is there a separate break even? Why not, you know, just raise the stop loss? And the answer is if you change your mind. If you start moving the stop loss to the open price for your break even, then if you change your mind, you've got to remember where the stop loss was. But with our break even, you can just tick it and untick it. At the moment, the trade's currently in loss, so if we were to tick the break even, what it would do is actually close the trade when it went back up to the open price. So that's an extra feature really of our break even, is it works in both directions. Okay, so we've got the status text there where it's showing us that the trade's in loss at the moment. So we've got the in brackets there, it's got the pips that it's in loss by, and then the actual amount on the currency, and it shows in yellow text as well because it's in loss. Right, let's just close that. And let's just show you these pending orders. So that's the other thing we've got here. And all we need to do, we've got the two options. You can either alert or actually trade first of all, and then you can do it when the price reaches the target line, or when the candle actually closes above or below the line. Okay, so we'll use the conventional. So now we've got the pending. Now this is a regular pending order now because that trade's been closed, and it's basically it'll just open the trade when the price reaches this line. If you put the target underneath, then it'll automatically change to the pending limit type, and it's now it would trade if the price went back down to that line. So that's it. And if you want to turn it off, you can just go to the off there. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. And then, by the way, under config, pending orders, you can set things like expiry as well on seconds. And we've got this one cancel others, that's very popular. So if you set up two pending lines, buy and sell, when one of them gets hit, it'll cancel the other one. Okay. Also on the take profit lines, we've got the TP button, so you can make on the fly changes there. We do get asked, how do you do a manual take profit? Well, you can, if you untick this auto ratio, so at the moment it's set into the risk reward ratio, but if you untick that auto, click OK, and now it's possible to actually move that line, okay, without it recalculating. Okay, now it's time to get on with the interesting part of the system, which is where we're actually going to configure it with some indicators. So a good thing to do first of all, and we did cover this on the general product video, activate strategy builder mode. So what that will do is put this panel up where it can go through whatever's configured and calculate some statistics. Obviously at the moment we've not got anything, no indicators configured, so you just get the orange bar. But let's get configuring stuff. So we've got on our library, we've got the custom indicator settings and standard ones. So let's go to customs, and we showed you this in our general product video. We've got the super trend one, it's a good free one. So it's got this quick load code which we need to type into the EA. So if we just go back to the EA, it's config, and it was I-NRST. Click download. We won't click replace existing because that's just going to wipe out all the trade rules and everything that we've got down here, which we are going to need. So what that's doing, it's going off to our server, it's getting the configuration for that indicator. You already have to have the indicator installed, which we have. So under indicators, that one that we mentioned there is already downloaded and installed. So we've got it on the chart. This bottom bit is then showing you when the indicator transitions from buy to sell in this case. These multiple lines is because we've got this like multiple take profit going on, so these are all the partial closes. Any partial close it shows you in brackets and the overall result down at the bottom. The profit's looking quite poor, no doubt. We're not so sure about doing the partial closes and moving the stop loss. We tend to find actually just having a take profit where you've just got one and then something like 1.2 and not touching the stop loss. In our testing, raising stop loss, you know, the jury's out on that really. Go back to 100%, click save. So anytime you make a configuration change, it recalculates for you. And let's see if that's improved anything. Yes, a little bit. And obviously we can add in more indicators and so on. Right, so yeah, so it's much more simple now. We've got the open price. So it shows you like the simulated trades on the chart. We've got our stop loss there. And then we've got the take profit. So 1.2 risk reward ratio, so we're risking 2%, so we got the 2.4% result there. Brilliant. Okay, so let's have a little look just what actually happened behind the scenes. So the indicators that you've downloaded, they will appear in config, indicator values to capture. And then we've got the selection list of what's configured, so we've just got one that we've downloaded, and you can see the settings. So we've got the indicator name, we've got some input properties, color index 01. The reason is, let's just show you what's behind that. So if I put it on the chart, okay, so this is the indicator there, which as you can see it's transitioned from blue to red, and that's when we've opened the trade. If you right click and look at the colours, so basically what we've got is It's quite common, this actually. Colour 0 is like the blue, which is going to be the buy, and then the 1 is the red, which is the sell, and that's what our colour index box is looking out for with the on the default buy sell. So we've got the 0,1, so 0 is your buy index and 1's the sell one, and that's what gives us our signals. Okay, now the profit is a little bit poor really, because usually Supertrend does perform better than this. But what I've remembered is in config we change the stop loss, because parabolics are, we think ATR is better actually. It is calculating both directions. Obviously we've got the optimizer that will go through everything anyway, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's put it back to the stop loss ATR, and again it's going to recalculate, and it will recalculate on all the other charts of course, just to see if that makes things a little bit better. And it has there, that's improved things a little bit. Right, okay, so what we can start doing now is to add in some indicators. So at the moment we've just got the 1, but let's just add to the chart just so you can see what the kind of thing I'm talking about. Let's add there a moving average. We'll put in period 800, simple moving average, so it gets a little line there. What we'll do, we're going to take the trades that are on the correct side. So we're going to make sure that for a buy that it's crossed over this 800. So this is like the buy zone, so we'll only take the buy trades. I mean, I know this one was successful there, but very often it can help just to only take the buy trades when you're actually in the buy zone. So to actually add this to our strategy, because we've just put it on the chart, that's not enough, we've got to configure the EA with the indicator. Just go to config, indicator values to capture, they want a new one. Just type in a little reference, we'll put MA for moving average. Moving average is a built-in indicator, so you don't need to download it from our website. We've actually got it available within our selection list. And then we need to set the period, which was 800. And it's a simple moving average. Click Save. So what it's going to do now, it's going to check both of the indicators. It's going to take Supertrend, brilliant, but it's also going to check that the price is closed above that moving average line. Okay, so let's have a little look what we've got. Let's just bring that down so you can see a little bit. So it goes orange when like neither of them are in agreement, and then it'll turn sort of the full colour when both are in agreement. Now you can see here, this is an interesting one. So what's happened, we've actually had the buy signal down here. It's a bit of a funny chart because we've got the weekend gaps. There's a little bit of a gap in the price chart, but I just want to show you the general principle. We've got the signal here, but the reason it's opening late is because it was only here that the price had gone above this moving average line. So what would be quite nice really in this situation is if you do get the signal on the indicator that moves faster and the other slower indicator like this one isn't in agreement, then we just don't take the trade, because we don't really want to enter trades in late, because you know usually the market will only move so far. So you know, it's a bad idea really to enter late in the trend. So what we can do is to set the system so that if this indicator is not correct and not present when this one is at the start of the move, if you like, then we don't actually do the trade. And to configure that, go to config, indicator values to configure, go to moving average, and set this priority to high and start. Click Save. And what it's going to do now is it will just check that that faster indicator is in agreement. Okay, and it's slightly improved the profit as well, so you can see now it's not taking that trade. And you get these grey X's, because what it's saying is, yes, we've got a signal on the faster indicator, but because the price hasn't crossed this moving average line with the yes and high at start, then it puts these grey X's in, and that's like void entry. So just don't take this entry, just wait for the next move. So provided the change actually happens when the price is on the right side of the moving average line, then that's only when it will take the trade. Okay, so you can see there it's all crossed out there on these buy trades. Okay, so it's just a very good example of kind of the advanced kind of things that you can do. Okay, now of course you can download other indicators. We've got another good one, trend scalp and arrows. So you've got again the quick load code TSAA. So if we just type that one in, so it's config I-TSAA download. Okay, so again it'll go off to our server, get the configuration and recalculate all the stats. Okay, and what we could also do is just to turn off that moving average one that we did. Okay, and just rely on it. Always, it tends to be that the custom indicators perform better than standard ones, because that's why they were created in the first place, really. So let's just see if that helps a little bit. Just nice to see the profit a little bit higher. Okay, we're getting somewhere, brilliant. And obviously, we haven't begun to optimize the system. We haven't yet run the optimization on the stop loss, because it could be some different properties or a different calculation method or fixed pips that could obviously make things better, or even just a little extra change on the offset and trailing and so on. But just one thing I wanted to talk about though is what actually happens when we get signals. So we've got all our sort of simulated trades there, but how do we actually get it to trade for real? And what we've got is if you go to config and general settings, and it's this auto mode, this says what the system should do with signals actually on your account. So at the moment it's just in an evaluate mode that just considers things but doesn't actually take any action. But you can get it to alert you, set up pending orders, trade as a one-off, so you'll have to authorize it on a per trade basis or just trade continuously. And the signals will happen when all the configured indicators are in agreement, subject to this threshold here. So we've got it set to 100%, so that's the default. So only trade when we've got 100% of indicators in agreement, only exit when 100% have gone the opposite direction, and reset, that basically says when can we trade again. So again, only trade if they've all gone opposite and then they've come back to 100%. Okay, also in the general settings, if you have got it on alert mode, you can say whether it should be a pop-up, email or notifications mobile, and also you can set trading hours as well, and that will update in the stats if you do set that. And we've got two ranges that you can fill out. Some people want to do morning and then afternoon, or you can just use just that for the day. And Friday, some traders like to just knock it down an hour, 60 minutes on a Friday, so that they're not opening trades just before the market closes on a Friday. Okay, just one other thing to say about auto mode. If you go to config display, we can put onto the panel a auto mode control. Okay, so you now got the auto mode for sell, auto mode for buy, and that's how you do this one-off trading. So if you want it to just trade once and then go back to the evaluate mode, then that's how you could do that. Okay, so that's just worth knowing if you want to do like semi-automatic trading. Let's talk a bit more about these trade rules. So this is very configurable. These are our default rules, and their job is to trade when all the indicators are in agreement. So it'll look at like the running total, which is here. So the total at the moment is 100. So we must be therefore in the buy situation, which we are. So, and that is obviously not less than minus 100. Basically it's 100 means full buy and minus 100 is full sell. So that's what it's waiting for. Obviously this section's configurable, and it's also configurable what the default is. So if you wanted to turn off because we've got like an exit when the indicator goes in like the sort of opposite direction. So what you can do is to turn that off. So here it's like it's been in the buy situation and then it's gone into the sell. If you wanted to experiment with turning that off, a couple of ways of doing it. You could go to config. Under general settings you could blank out the exit threshold, so that would work. Or you could not have this ticked by default, so you could go to config, and these it's this rule GUI controls, and then we've got the one for the exit box. It's a tick box, it's the indie exit, and then we can just turn it off by setting that to 0. As you can see there, we've actually changed. Now it's going to recalculate the stats, but with that option off. Just see how it affects things. Sometimes it's quite interesting, the effects, because it really lets the trades run, but actually no, it has lowered the profit, so we won't do that. So to revert back, if you've changed something and it's made the profit worse, just click the revert button and that will reload in the previous configuration and put it back to how it was. And you can see it's reticked that box, and then everything will go back to how it was. So yeah, we've got our rules library with lots of settings available. So let's have a little look what we've got. We've got the various things. We've got filters. We've got exit rules, so you can do extra exit conditions, so you can exit, just before the market closes on a Friday. And then those filters. We did cover this on our main product video actually, where you can do things like filtering out news events. So that is avoid the news. That's quick low code F-NA. So if we do that, so it's going to be F-NA, download, click OK. And then it's done news avoid there, so it's got the B, which means avoid news before, so it means don't open a trade just before a news event. And you've got BA, before and after, so neither open before or don't open just after. And you may say, well, how do I control those thresholds? Well, in our library we've got like a rule details link. So we've got the filter for the news avoid, click rule details, and then basically it tells you here we've got some EA inputs that will allow you to set those thresholds that I just mentioned. So it just explains things in a bit more detail. Okay, so at last it's now time to start talking about optimization, because there is so many settings. The stop loss and take profit, they're really easy. Just press these buttons and away it goes, and we demonstrated that in our main product video, and the same for the take profit, which is also that exit. So how I showed you before, that exit on and off, it'll actually do that for you and see which is best, and it'll store it then on a sort of per symbol period basis. But let's talk about optimizing indicators. So if we go to indicators values to capture, we'll go to our favorite. So what we've got is we need to have this set. So this is the indicator inputs and properties. So if you have a little look at the indicators properties, so we go to inputs. It's very common this. You see the main inputs that control how the indicator calculates is like the first few. So we've got our periods, which is an integer value. So that 1, 2, 3 little icon means it's an integer value, so it's a whole number. And then when you get the half there, then that's going to be a floating point, so it's just worth bearing that in mind. So we've got the indicators defaults there, and then we need to set what sort of optimizations we want to try. So if we go to optimization settings, and basically what this is saying, and obviously you can edit this and fill it out yourself, it's saying for the first input, which is going to be the 10, so that's input number 1, we want to try between 7 and 14. So we recommend having like the default as like the midpoint, if you like, and then go a little bit either side. And step is the actual changes that it will try as it's going through. Now because it's an integer whole number, that step's going to have to be 1, or it's also going to have to be a whole number. Then that second number, the 5, so that's input number 2. We want to change that between 3 and 7. Now that was a floating point number, so we can do a step there of a quarter, so we can, each pass it does, it'll go through a quarter, and it tries all combinations of these. So it's going to go through, so it's like it's why really we limit it to 5 actually, because the more you have, the more passes it's going to have to do to get through them all. And then all you have to do to kick off the optimization, well, you've got the button there that you can use. Let's just do that. Let's kick that off, go in. And then what you can also do is go to config, and we've got some buttons down there to do it where it goes through. If you've got multiple indicators, then it can go through all of them for you. Okay, and then there's also that option of doing it over the weekend. Brilliant. So yeah, that'll just go through, then it'll go through all those different inputs. It'll take it a long time, but you know, no problem. You can have it running over the weekend and so on. And then when it's made an improvement, you'll see that down here, and then it'll save it to file on that kind of symbol and period basis. Okay, so just a couple more things to show you. It's possible to do, when you're using the configuration, say setting the stop loss or something like that, it's possible to do it on like a per symbol or period basis. So some users want to have different stop losses for different currency pairs, let's say. So let's show you how you can achieve that. If you go to config, options, we've got this allow configuration to be set per symbol period. If you tick that and click save, then what happens with the config, now you've got this configure for appeared, and you can put in the symbol, so you can put in like Euro USD, let's say, and then possibly the period, H1 we're doing at the moment. And now what will happen is when you want to configure something like the stop loss, it's going to just be for Euro USD H1. So that's just a nice little feature. And what you can also do if you want to, so let's just go back to that, is say you wanted to change all euros, to change the stop loss for all euro based currency pairs, and you can put euro, so you can actually just put a currency in there, and again when you set the stop loss it's going to do that. Okay, so I just thought it'd be nice to perhaps go through just some of the EA inputs. And the good news is there's very few that you really would need to change. Mostly everything's done through the config button. A couple of ones to still mention though. We've got the max spread for trade open, so basically you can get it to do a check on that the spread's not too high, so you can reduce that down, say to 1 or 2 pips. So you might want to do that. And let's have a little look at what else we've got. Obviously you can change all the colours and everything like that. The scale X and Y, if you set that to say 2 or something like that, it'll make the panel bigger. So that's for people with like these retina displays. You can also change the font size as well, things like that. Oh, and there's also the box. This will actually change the location of the panel. In a future release we'll actually do it where you can do it from on the panel itself, but at the moment just need to change this box, the corner, and then the offset from that corner. Well, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully that's helped you get a bit more knowledge about the product. If you've got any questions though, as always, just email us at support@runwisefx.com.